kind of go through that plus here. So last time we talked a little bit about pages and templates and how it was normally done, right? So last school, I'm going to go through to help you quite understand. There's a pages table, and it has records, right? And last week we actually created a page called Brian that you can, when you go to that page, it showed up, right? There's templates. And there's users built into WaSQL. There are global variables in WaSQL kernel. That is the record of the current page you're on. If you're viewing a page like /volume, all the variables in that record are in. As the template you're on. How are they going to use that? There's a $1 user, and that's the current user who's logged in. So when you start to build intranet, WaSQL is ideal for their internal desktop. Everyone's logged in. So it's really easy to say, if you're logged in and did it, and all that is based on global variable called user, because I could know who's there. There's also a function called isUser. And that returns Boolean that says, is he logged in? So I can say, if not, isUser, so a logging prompt. And we'll walk through that today. Right? On the side, I'm building this survey thing for that the CEO wants to log in all the stores on the weekend. And so I check if he's not logged in, I make him log in. And once he's logged in, I say, which group are you in? And based on the group, you can see. So I use user a ton. The user also allows you to set user specific names for me and not my other background. User base. Okay, so we have pages, template, and user. In the programming world, there's what's called model view controller, MVC. So in that, the concept of model view controller was if you take your view, that would be HTML. That's what people see. Your controller, that controls this view. So if you think about this HTML, if you broke your HTML into sections, the controller might say, when you first log in, only show them A. Then once they do something, change the view to B, or based on what they do on the page, or who they are, or whatever your logic is, show them different parts of the view. Okay, and then the model is just functions that are behind everything. So in WaSQL, this would be body of a page, controller, and functions. Okay, I'm going to walk through the example set of that for a minute so you can kind of understand. Okay, templates. Pages are given a template. So if I have a page called index, it just might say welcome. But the template has my design in it. And so if you think about before how outside of WaSQL, you'd have an include. The index would say include the header and include the footer. Include header.php and include footer.php. So a template is both the header and the footer combined, and you simply tell it, here's the template, put the index page right here. So you don't have to include the header and the footer because both of those are the template, and now you're just deciding where inside the template you should put the page itself. So it's kind of opposite of the other. Here you're saying where do I put the header and the footer? Makes sense a little bit? So let me show you that. Okay, so I'm going to look at my local host and
In here, I have a page called index. Index has a template, is given a template. I can choose blank or I can choose main. If I look at the main page, it is HTML. And so it's just here's my HTML. And then right here, I say include the page value body. So it says insert the body of the page right here. And then here, this would be my footer in the normal part, right? This would be my include header, and this would be my include footer if you're thinking outside of WaSQL. This is the template. So, I mean, the templates can get a lot fancier than this because you can wrap menus and other stuff inside of it. This is a basic template that says include the page right here, the page value. And I'm going to take the body of the page and stick it right here. The body will control the rest anyway. Right, that's the view in the model view controller part. Right, I could say title. I could go into the pages table and add a new field to that table called title, or called color, and I could say page value color here, and there would be whatever that happened to be, whatever I put in that page record. Yeah. So now, if I go into the pages, here's the pages table, and in the pages table, I have a name, a title, a template. I have a body. I have a controller, I have a functions, right? These are just fields in the table. So when I say page value body, I'm saying insert this in the template right there. Yeah. Okay. So that's basically the view in the MVC model. The controller controls this. Okay. Controller controls this page. Yes. So let me tell you now we have this body. Here's the page. This body. I'm going to do the body. Body can be run on view tag. So we say view colon. If I say default, if I happen to have a view called default, then it'll use it. Okay. But I can make the view names whatever I want. So I might have one view here called A. This is just, I'm just breaking it so visually it could be anything. A. I can have a view here called B, and I can have a view here called C. Then I can have it, and then I can put a default. If the controller doesn't set the view, then it's going to go use the default. If the controller sets the view, then it's going to use the exception. We're going to walk through an example of this in a second, but by having multiple views on the page, when you first go to the page, unless you don't do anything else, it's just going to show you this piece of that HTML. The rest is hidden. It's stripped out before you give it to the user. So let me show you an example of this. I'm going to bring up my editor here. I can. Okay, here's my editor, and I'm looking at localhost, and here's my index page. The index has a view default, okay, and the default says build me a link here, and build me another link here, and a link here, and a link here, and then build me a div down here and call it results, give an ID results, and that's my default view. Then I have a view called 1 and a view called 2. So wish I had 2 screens actually. If I go to my page and I just say localhost and hit enter. If I go over here, let me get rid of the ones I'm not using. I have an index. Just gonna look at these 2 for right now. So in my controller, I have logic that says, so I think we talked a little bit about pass-throughs last time, but I'm not passing anything through. There's not a slash anything else on the end yet. It's just the page. So it's going to go down here to default and say, set the view to default. And then we're done. That's all it does. Okay. So then when I first go to the page, it's going to take this view and display this HTML on the page, and that's it. These other ones get erased. They're not there yet. Now I have a link here that goes back to the same page and passes in a pass-through 0 called 1. Okay. I'm going to do that through an AJAX call in this case. So if I go to my controller and I say, if the pass-through 0 is 1, then set the view to 1. And if I pass in 1 behind it, it says make this the only view. Strip out default, make this the only view that you start with. Okay. I'm going to create a variable here in my controller that will be accessible to the body, to the view, called rec. Okay. And then I'm going to return. So I set the view to 1 and return, unless there happens to be a pass-through of multiple pass-throughs. So here's my, I always have to sneeze once during my meetings. I don't know why. That's a bad saying. So on the second AHREF, you notice I'm passing in 1 as the first pass-through and A as the second pass-through. This is 1 as the first pass-through and B as the second pass-through. My controller says, inside of 1, check to see if there's a second pass-through, and if so, and if it's A, set the view to A. Notice here that I did not put comma 1 because I want to add, I want it to be, see, views can be nested. Set the view to 1, but inside of 1, if there is an A, also show it. And if it happens to be A, change the rec status to angry. So let me show you what happens. If I just click on 1, it says 1. And I'll explain this one down here in a second. If I click 1A, it says this is 1A. My name is Billy Bob. I am angry. If I click 1B, it changes what happens based on my controller here. I'm angry or I am bonkers. Okay, I'm changing the rec status based on this. So the controller is determining what you actually see on the page. And the initial default has, I'm not redrawing the menu here because I'm using an AJAX call and I'm passing it to it and I'm only populating the result. So I have an on-click return page nav. In this page, it also has a JavaScript and there's one function and it says call AJAX, and whatever you return from that URL, stick it here in the result. The result is this section on the page right here. So I am populating this div. In fact, let me do this. Hello, I am here. If I put that there, and I just hit enter, and so I'm refreshing the page, it's going to say, hello, I am here. Well, when I click on one of these other links that does an AJAX call, it's only going to replace this div with the content of what got returned by the AJAX call. You can, are you guys understanding? And if you guys have questions or it's like, that doesn't make sense, then I'll repeat it. Because this concept about how to use AJAX and how to use a single page to build an app, this is how you build apps. This is how you really make your website super functional and super powerful. Last night, my daughters and I come up with an idea that we could build this family business that's going to make us a boatload of money. And they're like, oh, how do we get this started? Well, within an hour, I had already built the WaSQL website, made it secure through a search, and had the default page up. You can't do that with most systems, right? And an hour probably when I went and had some dinner, well, in between, because I was able to say, oh, just add it to WaSQL thing, and then I was able to start modifying it and start building some of the logic that would control this, because it was easy to build a sample and then start building these apps. And I'm going to do exactly what we're doing now. I'll build a menu, and based on the menu, it's going to change the content of the pages and control this stuff. That's how it works. But anyway, I think that you'll find this could be really powerful if you could catch these concepts today. Okay, so let's go back to this controller again for a minute. So then I have 2. Well, 2 changes to say I am Sally Songwhistle and I'm amazing. Why did it say this? Because your controller set inside of the controller, it says, if you pass in 2, then it's a different, the rec is a different variable. So let's go back to the index for a minute. So within 2, and within 2, I say, my name is rec name. So it looks the same thing, right? But the controller changed the variable of the array rec. So it holds different data in the controller, and it's the same stuff up in the page. Okay. So views are cool. It allows you to build apps. There's a couple functions that make it really, really useful. So have you guys ever heard of Cold Fusion? Cold Fusion now is about obsolete, but there's still, in fact, I think DataTrack still uses it. InfoTrack uses it on our portal sometimes. There's some CFM pages. So Cold Fusion was a tag-based system that says, if I have a tag, so it based everything on these XML tags, and the XML tags controlled what your page does. So what I've tried to do, so in order, for instance, let's say I want to display a record set that says, okay, I know there's 10 people in my database, and I want to display their name, their age, and their color. This is the favorite color, not the color of their skin, because I don't want to be. But if I wanted to loop through this in HTML, I could build a table row with TDs, right, for these. But if I had this list in my controller of recs, then how do I loop in HTML? You don't want to put, you want to put as little as PHP in your view as possible, because the designer is going to go in there and change the classes and the CSS, right? So that's what tag-based at Cold Fusion was. Is they'll put a tag around it, and then inside these tags was the HTML, so they could loop through. WaSQL has a few functions that allow you to do similar things. One of them is called render. There's a render view. Okay, let's try this here. So let's change. I'm going to say this. Rex equals an array. So I'm going to build this into a multi-set, right? So there's an array of an array. That would be my first set, and my second set is going to be this one. So now I have 2 elements in my recs variable. The first one is Bob, and the second one is Sally. So if I want to loop through this set, I can say, okay, inside of 1, I want to say, where am I? Oh, here am I. So I want to say view rec, or whatever I decide to call it. And then here I have a function in WaSQL called render each. That I say render each. And what do I want to render? I want to render rec. And I'm going to pass it recs. And I'm going to, inside of there, I'm going to call it rec. I could call it anything I wanted. But now, for every time that there's something in this variable, it's going to loop through this view. Make sense? Because I named it right here. So let's call this person instead, so it's a little bit easier, so you can see whatever I call the view. Oops. If I call the view person, I'm going to say render each person, and then pass it the set. So for everything in this element, inside the loop, call it rec. So these two tie together here. So I'm going to get rid of. So if I do that and hit Control, I go back to here. Now I'm no longer relying on, if I just say 1. So now it's this section here did render each. So it looped through each one of those and created me that loop. Okay. You can also, so there's render each. There's also render view. So if you need to create a view without setting it in your controller, you can say render view. So if 1 equals 3, then view, then show view C. So this only will ever show if 1 equals 3. Right? But if I said if 1 equals 1, then it'll always show, right? If Boolean, show this view, and then pass in this stuff to it. This one is very similar. It's render view if else. If 1 equals 2, then show D. Otherwise, show E. Okay? And then the last one that you're going to see that is, I don't use too often, but if it gets pretty hairy, then I can do a render view switch. It says based on this variable, if this variable's value is 1, then show this view. If it's 2, then show this view. If it's 3, then show this view. It just makes it easier than having to nest a bunch of render view ifs.
Render view, if else. We have condition, true, false.
And then this is the stuff you can pass to it. You don't have to pass it. If there's stuff inside of here that you need a variable for, you need to pass it this so that it knows what to do with it. I mean, you can stop here, but then, no, they're not. Yet. I haven't figured out how to make them global. Maybe at some point I could make them global, but the reason why they aren't global is because in a render each, you might pass this might be called Rex people. This might be called people, and you could pass it rec, right? And then you could have another render each below it that passed a different variable, and you still use rec inside of it. So if I make rec global, then you can it becomes where you're fighting with variables. It's almost like this is it's like a let in JavaScript, or it makes it private to that loop. It's not, what do you mean? Mm-hmm.
Parameters in the so like because they going to pass rec there, but then inside of person, the view person, there's nothing that says I'm going to get rec.
So if I call this ABC or ABC, then this is going to be called ABC.
Right. There's nothing in the this is what's going to come this corner. You need to know you need to name these things.
Yes, yeah. And if you guys have a better, as you start using it, I think you'll catch it. If you have a better suggestion, I'd love to figure out a different way to do it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
That's why I thought they were global.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Just because there's nothing to designate.
Oh, yeah, because you're thinking the reason why, and that partially is because I don't want this section to have definitions, because it's going to be changed by the developer who knows HTML. Yes. Yes, they are. Render each, render view if, render view if else. Yeah, yeah. Right. So, yeah, it takes a bit of getting used to, because you're really just showing sections of your page, right? In this case, let me show you an example, a real life example. Here is one I'm working on. This is real stuff. This is a person who has, where's the Jelly Bees? This is their account page where they can see everything and manage it. So I have a default view, but inside there I have a view menu that says, render view if else. If the person that has rights to this menu then show it this way, otherwise show it this way. So this section is one. And then I have another that says, okay, because I can set on this person whether they have access to each section in the menu in their user's profile. So there's a whole bunch of logic that says render view if else, render view if else, render view if else. That's for the menu on the side. And in fact, if I go there, just so you can see what I'm talking about. This menu here, all these pieces, is controlled by these render view if else. Because if I choose to turn that piece off for them, and I'll show you, if I go into my user in here and I say, don't let him see, I only want him to see users and brands and locations and not the rest. Then if I hit save, then I need to go back in here. So notice there's little X's here on the ones I don't have access to. They're no longer clickable because in my render view if else, if he has access, then make it clickable. Otherwise, return false. I still want them to see that they're there, but they don't have access to them. So that's controlled by this render view if else. Then down here further in the page, I have just a render view. It says, you know what? I'm going to put a view down here called something else that I might have a view below, and I'm going to call it 5 times, but I'm going to pass it different stuff each time, different variable sets. So then I can define a view, and then I can call render view and just pass it different stuff every time, and it'll process. Okay. So there's, and then so I have a user section. I have a render view if here. Do I have any loops in here? I have, okay. Here's a render view switch. So when they're viewing reports, oh, it didn't give me access to reports. I can't view reports. Okay. This person is viewing reports, then based on the report, yeah, I'm going to show this report, or I'm going to show this report, or I'm going to show this report. And that's all done with this render view switch. If the section I'm looking at is a gauge report, then view the gauge chart, view the view called gauge chart. If it's a stacked horizontal bar. So these are all types that it could be. And based on the switch, I'm going to show different views. So if I, for instance, if I go to here, I have a view called H bar chart, and that controls what the horizontal bar chart looks like. It's all based on these render view ifs and switches and control, and based on the controller. The controller controls what's inside of it. So here's a controller that says, okay, if I pass in import, then process some file uploads or do these other things and then set a view. If I pass in this, do some other things and set a view. If I go to if I pass in reports, then I'm going to set some variables and set a view, and then I'm done. So when they click on report, then they get this section of the body. This sets some variables that is based on that is controlled in that view. Fly on the wall? Bill? Questions? Does that make sense? Brian? So this is the account page, and it controls, in this other app, it controls the account app. Everything on that menu is controlled by that single page, and it's based on this controller that sets which view of the body to show at the time based on variables that get passed in and out. In this case, this is that pass-through, right? case, a report should be the pass-through 0. So if they pass in report / gauge, or there might be multiple variables in your pass-through, right? So your first initial statement or account in this case, then it could be A, B, C, and then this would be pass-through 0, 1, 2.
Pass through. Right. And then so inside you pass through and you're at
So if the pass-through is import, then set the view for this, set it to 1 and return. So it allows you to do, if I go up here to, yes, in this case, it's, yeah. If I go up here to surveys, oh, I don't see, I don't have access to some of these because I've turned them off. But it allows me to, all of these are all controlled through a single page called account.
so just have your big nested if statement.
So if you were going to build this and anything else that your index.php to show this would be a whole bunch of PHP broken into pieces, and then you'd be echoing like crazy, or different pages. Yeah, yeah. So if I go into responses, responses is going to call an AJAX. Let's see. If I go into responses, responses is going to, if I click this, it's going to pass in a pass-through that says import, and the import is going to say set view this, and that's exactly what it does. It says set view responses import and returns. That's all I got back. That's done in the JavaScript of this page. You can specify that when you pass the AJAX call. Pass it if the second parameter is a magic variable called modal, then it automatically creates a modal for you. That there's center pop and modal, and both of those fields don't have to exist on your page. If they're not there, it'll create them for you. So based on that view, this is the only thing that showed.
So you could make that view show up on page also.
Right, but that view is, that the view in this case is set up on that page. Another page in the pages table might have the same name for the view, but it'll be a different content. Because views are specific to the page they're on. Okay, let me bring up. So let's see, we have render. We talked about these. We talked about these a little bit. There are times that you may want to take multiple pages and put them together. Like up here where you have the old pages, it would be called like an SSI include, or where you include in a file within a file, right? Because you might say like include header, include footer. There is a function in WaSQL called include page. So inside of a page, you can include another. For instance, I can go into the template and I can build a page called left menu or top menu. And in the template, I can say include page top menu. And then that whole page with the controller and logic for it gets included wherever I set it in my template. Yeah. Then I can say include page top menu, include page side menu, and they're controlled with their own controllers and body and views. And if I include a page, then the JavaScript in that page gets also compiled. So you guys all know about WordPress, right? So if I go out here to, what's a favorite WordPress site? I don't know one, but okay. There's one. 14 awesome examples of WordPress. There's one of these will be one that we can look at. If I can find out how to get to them, I will. Middle child. All right, so we have middle child Philly. So I'm going to hit F12 for a minute, and we're going to look at this page for a minute. So if I go to network, and I'm going to go over here. I'm going to hit F5 to refresh this. Middle child Philly hit the server 83 times to get the data for this one page. Okay. And the reason why is if I hit Control U, WordPress had to include CSS once, JavaScript 1, 2, 3, another font. There's all of these things that it includes, right? And then it goes down here and says get these images, and then get this. Oh, include this CSS, and then come down here at the end of the page and include a whole bunch more JavaScript, right? So it had to go back to the server 30, 40 times to get more JavaScript, because when you go to install WordPress, it says, hey, there's a new module, this add-on that allows you to do this. And every add-on has its own JavaScript and its own CSS. So one of the benefits of WaSQL is the JavaScript and CSS are defined by the page and the template. So if a page is using the template, then I'm going to merge the JavaScript for the page with the JavaScript of the template, and you're going to have one JavaScript call. If the JavaScript is, the same with the CSS, you're going to get a CSS for the template. I'm going to put the CSS on for the page underneath so that it overrides anything that was defined by the template, because the page would be a lower level. And then I would make one call to the database to get a CSS. So let's say I want additional functionality, like Bootstrap. There's a function called include extras, and you can say, I need to include extras Bootstrap, and it takes that and compiles it with your single Bootstrap call. So on a WaSQL site, you have your HTML request, one JavaScript request, and one CSS request, and your page is there, rather than 45 JavaScript requests and 30 CSS requests, because it's hitting the server a lot harder than it needs to, because every one of those is a separate JavaScript. So that's why we have on the page, we have this CSS and this JavaScript, because those get compiled into this single request that is defined in your template, so that you only have to have one call. Okay, so let's take a look at where we are. Sorry, I missed it. So did we talk about post edit last time? Maybe a little bit. One of the powers of post edit of WaSQL is, remember, WaSQL is in a database, so I can't open up an FTP server and get the files on my hosting site and copy them local and modify them, because they're database records. There's no such thing as SFTP to a database. Post edit is that. Post edit allows you to do SFTP to a database. So you have localhost installed. Have we got post edit running on yours yet? Okay, so when you go into localhost, and you could probably do this on yours, you're logged in over here, it says admin. There's a menu option here. If you go down here to post edit, once you're logged in, it shows you about what post edit is. And it also says, here's the information you need to stick in your post edit XML file so that you can connect to this host with post edit. So you copy that section of the page. Okay, so you're going to go up here to admin and click on post edit. This is the back end of localhost if you have WaSQL installed. /A, yep. Yeah, or this user menu, and then here there's post edit. This will change based on, if I'm logged in as S. Lloyd, it would be not the admin menu anymore, it'd be S. Lloyd. So if you select that section and copy it, And in your WaSQL repository, wherever you put WaSQL, here's my WaSQL repository. There's a folder called post edit. Inside of post edit, you're going to find post edit.xml. You might have to go, so Windows tries to hide extensions, so I recommend that you go to View, Options, Change Folder Options, and in here, you can say, let's see, where is it? Where it usually you'll say hide extensions for known file types. Uncheck that sucker so that you can actually see whether it's a .xml or a .exe. You want to share your screen, Brian, with the class? I guess we kind of are recording, so I can't really do that.
So,
So, do you see a file called post edit? You might see multiples. Oh, that's true. So when you first install, there isn't one. So copy that sample.post edit and make a copy of it and rename it to post edit. And then we're going to go into that file once you have it renamed, and we're going to paste what we just had in here. Inside of postedit.xml, you're going to find a section called hosts, and there's settings. But the one thing you really want is called host, and you're going to paste what you just did, what you copied over here. You're going to take that section that you copy that, and you're going to put it in underneath hosts. I got to connect this really quick. Hey Dave, how are you? Good. I'm not right off the bat. Are you at your desk? Can I come up in a minute? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let me get, I'll be right up. Okay, thanks, Dave. Bye. All right. So once you have this in your host file, you can change the name to whatever you want. You can leave it localhost, or you can, the alias is how you call it. But this sets your key and your username and password, okay? So now that once that's in there, and I already have localhost in mine, so I'm not going to put it in there again. Right. But you can either remove that one if you want, or you can just replace it. But there's one for every, so these are all the servers that I connect to with post edit. A whole bunch of them that I connect to. But these are all WaSQL servers I connect to. As you can tell, there's quite a few. But so then when I open up, all I can do is if I go to a DOS prompt, to my WaSQL repository, wherever I am, and if I hit P space, and then the name of the alias, if I say P space localhost and hit enter, it's going to run. You notice it says, okay, I'm going to go out there and it's going to create. It's going to go out to localhost and get the files and copy them locally. Now, localhost happens to already be local, but this would work on any server, right? So, for instance, if you want to connect to BI, you do the same process to connect to it. It would copy them locally so you can modify them. What it does is it creates a folder in that post edit directory that you were just at, that you changed the post edit XML files. There is a post edit files folder, and that has a copy of, so there'll be one called localhost, and that has my pages and templates. And in there, then I can modify them with any editor now and make that work. So then you don't have to use the browser to change your pages. You can just go in here and modify that index page through any editor you want. And as soon as you hit save, as long as post edit is running, it'll automatically notify there's a difference and update the database. Yeah.
Got a message when I tried to.
Okay, so then you, in your post edit.xml, did you copy and paste what you found here? And let's see your post edit.xml. Did you save that? Oh, it worked. But it's trying to call this other thing called Explorer. And I can show you that before, but it's listening. So you should have a post edit files in there that is running.
It didn't, yeah, it
Yeah.
didn't give me the same error. I hadn't saved it.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be today's class, and hopefully even the flies on the walls learned a little bit. But that's how I can build things rapidly. It takes a little bit of practice, and the next time what we should do is I should give you a couple of sample databases that this code already built into them, so you can say, oh, here's an example of how they actually work, and you can just play on